like a black hole in movie production, isn't it? Among the big days,
it's almost more like a deer in headlights, right? I mean, you've got movies that are done. I mean, there's plenty of movies that are shot and done and, ready to be released. The theaters say they're, I saw Mookie on CNBC yesterday. I think Julia was interviewing him, the CEO of Cineworld, and he's talking about theaters are quote unquote safe. The reality is it doesn't really matter. The consumer's spoken. The consumer isn't comfortable going back and sitting in indoor movie theaters. The numbers on Tenet with no competition around the world, forget about New York being closed. The number of people that went to see this movie relative to what needs to see a movie to make it profitable, the theater goers are just not there yet. Like the consumer is just not comfortable with indoor movie theaters yet. And it's just going to take time. And I think that's why Hollywood is shutting down, because they don't really have an outlet. They can't put them out directly. I mean, NBC Universal did an amazing job with Trolls, going direct to consumer in the height of the pandemic, making it available for $20. That worked well for a relatively small movie. But billion-dollar type movies, that is not a solution. And so you can't do you can't do the premium video on demand at $20 to $30. Mulan certainly didn't work. You can't put them out in theaters. And so what you've sort of run into is, unless you're willing to embrace the Netflix model, which nobody seems to, you're basically in a waiting game.
So it's not that movie sets are dangerous and that they're not making them. It's that there's no reason to make it because no one's going to see it. It's got to be a combination of all those things, though, right? Actually,
Joe, I would say what's interesting is movie production is starting again. I mean, Tom Cruise is filming Mission Impossible. Avatar 2 just wrapped in, I think, New Zealand. The crazy part about this in many ways is that movie production is restarting. It's slow and it's very cumbersome and more expensive and more time consuming. But you're actually it's like a pileup. I mean, you think about like on the highway when you got like a 13-car pileup, like the pileup is building right now because you can't release these films. There's no outlet for them in theaters. And so it's sort of this oddity where Hollywood's making more movies but doesn't really have an outlet to distribute them right now. And that's going to be a really interesting event for, as you move into 21. I mean, I don't think many movies are coming out until sort of summer 21.
Is it over, or is it going to be like sports where if there's a vaccine or if this finally lifts, is there going to be a lot of pent-up demand to get back in there, or all these theaters, half of them are going to be closed and the employees are never coming back?
Well, I mean, look, the longer this goes, two things. One, I don't think most of these theater companies are prepared for this financially. And I think most likely scenario is that most of them file for bankruptcy protection. Remember, we've seen the theaters. This is not a new thing. The theaters have gone bankrupt before. They were, over-levered. They expanded too fast once before. I think what probably needs to happen, Joe, is that you probably need the theaters to go bankrupt, shrink their footprints. We don't need 40,000 movie screens in the U.S. We might need 10,000. We need to make it more of an event. I mean, I know you've had Rich Gelfond on from IMAX. The experience of going to a movie needs to feel more IMAX-like, more event-like to get you out of the home. And I think the longer the pandemic lasts, the longer theaters are vacant with movies, the more likely the consumer behavior starts to shift. I mean, in the month of October alone, there's 20-plus movies on Netflix. So Netflix is gunning direct-to-consumer movies on the streaming platform. That's going to start to alter behavior. I mean, the number 5 movie, or the number 5 title on Netflix right now is a movie called Outpost, a war movie. So there's a lot of movies coming out, just not in theaters.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.